So it's quite meta. Janath was talking about fictional caricature like super young coders. Unfortunately, that whole perhaps malicious marketing campaign has given a bad name to young coders, but really young folks who like code, who like writing software, they exist. And I'm super excited to have Rudra here. I heard of Rudra's work from a Hacker News post a few weeks ago, immediately reached out to him on Telegram. And there was quite a lot of excitement on the FOSS United Telegram group about Rudra's work. And he was gracious enough to chat with me and accept the offer to do this chat, do this interview. So super happy to have you here, Rudra. So really, I think what I'd like to know, and I'm pretty sure what everyone here wants to know is, how do you get started so young? And I was going through some of your release announcements, and I saw that you were making posts in 2020. So when did you get started, and how did you get started?
Oh yeah, so my mom introduced me to programming when I was pretty young, along with other hobbies like tennis and tabla. And I really like using the computer and programming. So yeah, by the age of 5 or 6, I was making some really basic Android apps and had published a few of them to the Google Play Store too. So I would use my mom's old laptop, which was really slow and ran Windows. So it only had 4 gigs of RAM, as a matter of fact. And I guess most of you Android developers here must be aware of how heavy Android Studio is, especially on low-end hardware. So yeah, I tried increasing the swap on Windows and adding arguments to Java and many other solutions. But yeah, the Android app builds would still take a lot of time, like upwards of 10 minutes in some cases. So I was just taking a look at alternative operating systems too, and I came across Ubuntu and Arch Linux. So I just decided to try them out, and yeah, that's how I got started using Linux. So I built so the Android app builds were much faster on Linux compared to on Windows. So after that, I was also interested in Android ROM development. So like I would leave the Android ROM builds before going to school, and I would come back, and the Android ROM builds would still not be complete, even after I returned from school, and I would have to wait for like 1 or 2 hours. So that's how I joined the XDA community. Like I published 1 or 2 ROMs on XDA. And I was also interested in like OS kernel development. So you could actually find a few of the kernels I developed on my GitHub. And most of the dependencies were present in Ubuntu, apart from a cross compiler, which I obviously had to build for compiling the kernel. So yeah, that's why I stuck with Ubuntu. And I also joined the Ubuntu community after that, wrote a few shell scripts for various purposes and suggested ideas in the Ubuntu discourse forums. And after that, I worked on Ubuntu Unity and released it, and it became extremely popular, like in 1 or 2 days, and was featured on Forbes and a few other places too, like Tech Republic, Make Use of, and others. And after that, a few months later, I worked on Ubuntu Web too. So it's basically an alternative to Chrome OS. And unlike other alternatives to Chrome OS, it has support for running Android apps, which is not present in other alternatives to Chrome OS. It's not even present in Chrome OS Flex, so to Android on Ubuntu Web. So yeah, that's how I got started with programming.
I mean, that's amazing. We'll get to your projects in a short while.
Yeah.
But it's amusing that you say that 4 GB of RAM wasn't enough. I remember starting out with 8 MB of RAM. So times have changed quite a bit. But that's quite amazing. You published your apps when you were 6. I mean, you published them on the official app stores.
Yeah.
So, and you said that your mother introduced you to programming. I mean, that is amazing. I had a quick, brief chat with your mother. I'd like to chat with her more about this story. So how do you make that leap? The introduction to programming, to publishing your own app, to writing your own kernels. How did that leap happen?
Oh yeah, so my mom basically just introduced me to the computer just like any other hobby. She gave me access to a few websites for just understanding logic and other stuff, and she would tell me to like search for things on my own instead of depending on her. So yeah, I started doing everything on my own after that and came across Android app development. So I would follow tutorials on YouTube, like from various channels, and that's how I built my first Android app. So it was a really simple clicker app, a simple clicker game which I published for Android 6 by following many tutorials. So that's the first Android app, and after publishing it, I was pretty happy. So I did that around the age of 6 or so, when I was in second grade. And after that, I built a few more complicated apps too, like a bus tracker. So back then, these tracker apps were not very common, and this was pretty complicated. Even Google's official app, yeah, it was extremely buggy, and most of the features were not present in it. So I basically forked that, fixed most of the bugs, and added more features like a map built into the app. And I published it. So this was one of the more complicated apps I developed for Android. And after that, like I mentioned earlier, the Android app builds were really slow, so I tried Linux because, like on modern hardware, you can expect Android app builds to take like 15 to 30 seconds at max. Whereas in that case, for very simple apps with like one or two Java files, because I was using Java for Android app development, it would take like up to 10 minutes, which is a lot for Android app builds.
Nice. So the other day when I was chatting with you on Telegram, you were quite busy with your exams. They were done on the 18th. And I asked you, how did it go? And you said, amazingly well. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that about exams. So how do you, see, you're in 8th grade. There's tons of schoolwork to do. We know how the system here works. How do you manage this? How do you manage your hobby? And this is no longer a tiny hobby. You're maintaining big projects. And it requires time and effort. Just answering, responding to tickets on issues on GitHub alone is a time-consuming affair. How do you balance this? Your school life, your kids' life, you play all of that, and how your hobby projects. How do you manage?
Oh, yeah, so I get like 1 or 2 hours to work on my projects every day because I have many activities which I need to do. Like on a regular school day, I like leave for school by around 7 a.m. and return by like 3:34, like I mentioned on Telegram. And after that, like I watch Linus Tech Tips and other channels while having fun. And then I go for cycling, and then I need to do the school work and prepare for any class tests. So I get like 1 or 2 hours after that to work on my projects and to attend meetings. Like I have like I have to attend the low media teams meetings, the UB ports meetings every Tuesday. So that and answering people's questions on Telegram, GitHub, GitLab, and other places. Then on weekends, I get like a bit more time to work on my projects, but not by much because, like I mentioned earlier, I have many activities like I have to attend tabla classes and then tennis classes, and I also go for swimming once in a while, and then, yeah, I also started playing snooker recently. So yeah, I don't get a lot of time, but this is sufficient to work on my projects. This is good enough, but I would love to have a bit more time to work on my projects.
Again, that is quite mind-blowing. So I have this issue, right? I start working on a hobby project or whatever project. I've spent 10, 15 hours on it in a single day. I have a headache. I don't know when to stop. And you're telling me that you're able to manage a host of activities and your hobby programming work with just 1 hour a day. It's not just about writing code, right? There are all these other aspects. You have to manage, you have to finish, you have to visualize, you have to set mental deadlines. And not only that, you're involved in communities everywhere. Like I said, I was going through some of your earlier posts on the Ubuntu Discourse Forum. And I remember reading that announcement post from 2020. And there were people, lots of people were appreciative, some people were skeptical, but you were patiently answering in great detail, with rationale, justifying the release, justifying your arguments, long threads. How did you have the patience? Because one thing that we do tend to see in a lot of FOSS projects and communities is that people run out of patience very quickly, and often maybe it is justified. But you're not only just writing code; you're heavily involved in community building. What are your thoughts on community building? What does it feel like to be involved in the community aspect of these projects?
Yeah, so by the way, since you were mentioning my old discourse post, I actually remember. So I had my exams just 2 days after I released Ubuntu Unity. So I got like 2 to 3 hours to work on the final release. Although I had been working on its base for some time, but Yeah, I prepared the final release in like 2-3 hours because I had my exams and I had to prepare for them, which I think I also mentioned in the discourse threads. So yeah, so there were many people who were like, especially on the Telegram groups, there were people who were complaining about the fact that Unity was still being maintained. So yeah, there were some people who were like, "Why are you even attempting to maintain Unity when GNOME exists?" So yeah, but there were a number of people. There were a number of people who also supported me, and like, yeah. So soon, those people too understood the importance of Unity, of the Unity desktop, and why I was maintaining it. And I also, so after that, like after my exams, I prepared many releases like in 2-3 weeks. I remember doing this thing: V1, V2, V3, V4. So yeah, I would release many releases like every day. I would release one thing or the other. So yeah, that's how the community grew. Like by the time I released the first 20.10 alpha, everything had settled down, and there were a number of people who were helping me out. And like we have a few designers like Alan Carvalho, who's the designer of the Ubuntu Unity logo, and there are a number of moderators too in the Ubuntu Unity team. So yeah, that's how the community grew of Ubuntu Unity.
That's great. Now, so Ubuntu Unity is a project that you maintain actively, Remix.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Why did you decide to fork Unity? And what was your motivation? So Unity has had a troubled history, everyone knows, and finally it got shut. But why did you pick it up? What was your motivation behind deciding to pick it up and work on it and keep it alive?
Yeah, so I remember right after, so I had been using Ubuntu 16.04 when I was doing the Android development, and
Sorry, I think just hold your mic still.
oh yeah, sure. Yeah, so like I mentioned just now, I was using Ubuntu 16.04, which used Unity 7. So right after Unity had been killed off by Canonical in 2017, there were a number of threads created on this course. And there were a few people who came forward to maintain it, like Hushid Alam, who's actually still involved in the maintenance of Unity 7. And then Dale too, but he's no longer present he's no longer maintaining Unity 7. But yeah, so there was still a community which was interested in Unity 7. Although I remember when Unity 7 was announced, there were a number of haters of Unity, but like Jack Wallen had described in an article in 2016 when Ubuntu 16.04 had been described, that even though it had been really, I think this was for Ubuntu 14.04 actually, so he had said this. He had said that when Unity was released, there were a number of haters, but yeah, but most of the bugs were fixed in Unity 7 by the time 14.04 and 16.04 were released, and the number of haters had reduced, but people were still following the opinions of Unity back when it was first released with all the bugs. So yeah, there was a community which was interested in the maintenance of Unity. So like in 2020, before I released Ubuntu Unity, I'd also made a small ISO in March 2020. So like I released Ubuntu Unity in May 2020. Before that, 2 months before that, I released an experimental ISO with Unity 7 on Ubuntu 20.04. So yeah, there were a number of people who were using it, so that just inspired me to continue developing Ubuntu Unity, and that's how I released the first version of Ubuntu Unity. And like just a few weeks ago, I forked Unity and released a new version, released the latest version, which was basically, this was the first version in like 6 years or so, because the last release was 7.5 in Unity 7.5, which was released with Ubuntu 16.10 in 2016. So like I added features like, and first of all, there were many bugs in the Ubuntu dash and the Unity 7 dash. So I removed the outdated references to the Ubuntu Software Center, since Ubuntu now uses GNOME software. Then like I made changes like adding support for accent colors, and updating the theme list in Unity Control Center, because before this, like every day I would get some question related to why can I not see the themes in Unity Control Center, because the theme list is empty. So many of these things were broken in Unity. So yeah, I had to fix all of those bugs, and that's how I released Unity 7.6.
That's great. So community adoption inspired you to keep going.
Yeah.
Curiously, your Telegram says that you don't use Ubuntu. You use
No,
Arch.
I basically have like two desktops. I have two desktops and a few laptops. So one of my desktops uses Arch and the other one uses Ubuntu. So like my Telegram name is Rudra Saraswat. By the way, I use Arch and Ubuntu Devil.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Sorry, the other half was cut
yeah,
off.
the
I
other
didn't see
half
it.
is Ubuntu Devil. So basically, Ubuntu Devil is the development channel of Ubuntu. Like it points to the latest alpha release of, I mean not alpha, but the latest testing release of Ubuntu. So like in the sources.list file, so Devil is basically just a pointer to the latest alpha release. Like currently it points to Kinetic, which is Ubuntu 22.10. So yeah, I use Ubuntu. Also, I dual boot Ubuntu, Arch, and a few other distros too.
What's your main driver?
My main
What do you use
driver,
most?
the most I probably use Ubuntu, and then once in a while, like I post on Reddit, I post my the sub screenshot of Arch like once in a while. But mostly for development, I use Ubuntu because like Ubuntu Unity can only be developed on Ubuntu since it's an Ubuntu remix. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't know what you'll make of me. I used Ubuntu for like 15, 16 years,
oh,
and I switched
nice.
to Fedora a few months ago. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll go back to Ubuntu. Fedora
Yeah.
with KDE.
I actually tried Fedora, but I literally broke it in I tried it when I was 2 3 I tried it 2 3 years ago, and I broke it in like 5 6 days. So yeah, and with I haven't like I mentioned in an interview with Nicola. So KDE. So every time I tried KDE, I would install too many themes, plugins, and everything else, and I would basically just do my KDE installation in like 2 3 days. So
So
yeah.
that's what changed this time. All these years, I installed something in Ubuntu and tweak, customize shadows, border shadows, fonts, padding, button styles.
See.
This time I decided not to bother with anything and let the operating system blend behind. So I have a really ugly looking Fedora with KDE running with everything turned off. But it's going well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do with my Ubuntu installs. Like one is basically full of all the tweaks which I made. Like I have i3 running, then I have KDE, i3, GNOME, Unity 7, and XFCE and Mate, all of them on one single installation. So yeah, it's extremely crowded. And in the other install, I've basically just kept GNOME, Ubuntu GNOME, and Ubuntu Unity. I've just kept both of them in a dual boot instead of using the same installation for all the different desktop environments. So I'm trying to minimize that.
Nice. Two quick questions before we open up for Q&A.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick chat about Ubuntu Web.
Sure.
Again, I'd like to know your motivation behind creating that and how the project's going.
Oh, yeah, so I basically, the first time I created it, I created it because like I had a GPD Pocket 2. There are no official Chrome OS builds for it available. So I was like, let me just try developing because like Windows and other operating systems are too heavy on the GPD Pocket. Like it does have 8 gigs of RAM, but for the CPUs, a really slow Core M3 8100Y. So yeah, most operating systems are extremely slow on it. So I just thought of maybe developing a small alternative to Chrome OS. So I experimented with developing a complete desktop environment in Electron 2 for Ubuntu Web. But in the end, I settled for GNOME. But I'm actually currently taking a look at using Pangolin, which is basically the user interface used in Dahlia OS, using that for Ubuntu Web, all working, and I'm also working on a browser for Ubuntu Web from scratch, which has support for PWAs, so it's probably going to be one of the few browsers, apart from Firefox, apart from Chromium-based browsers that has support for PWAs, because the PWA support in Firefox is horrible. So like you have to, so like the tool which I developed currently, which I'm using currently, which I developed for this, named Snow. So I basically just add a lot of CSS to hide the browser Chrome. I mean the browser Chrome, as in I'm not referring to the browser name Chrome. I'm referring to the browser user interface. That's what you call the browser Chrome for those who aren't aware. So yeah, currently I'm having to make many CSS tweaks to make them appear as PWAs. So that's why I'm interested in basically working on a browser which has inbuilt support for PWAs instead of tweaks like this in Firefox. So yeah, these are some of the things I'm working on for Ubuntu Web.
Cool. So maybe a little bit of historical context for you here also on a philosophical level. So over the course of the discussion, it looks like the motivation for hacking and tinkering has been largely issues that you faced. You were annoyed with something, you wanted to fix it, you figured out a way to fix it, and you spun off really cool projects out of that. So that's really the spirit of hacking. I mean, that's exactly how all of us hack around, and that's how hackers have been hacking for the last how many ever decades. So it's just, it keeps on going, that spirit. That's very heartening to hear. So, what next? Or have you really thought about what you'd do next after school, college? What do you plan on doing? You're doing so much already. You know so much already. There's so much more to learn and build. What do you want to do? What would you like to do?
Like I was actually working on a toy C compiler, on a really tiny C compiler to get a bit more familiar with like low-level languages, like the previous kernels which I developed. So they were mostly written in C. Like the bootloader obviously had to be written in assembly because obviously it's impossible to write a bootloader or anything else completely in C. I mean, it is possible, but then you'll have to use many hacks to develop a complete OS with C. So I just want to get a bit more familiar with low-level languages, uh, and then uh, and then completing the kernels which I was working on earlier and making them, and then maybe working on a Unix-like kernel in C, and yeah, that's what I'm interested in working on in future.
See, I really like that answer. I actually asked you the wrong question. I shouldn't have asked you what will you do in college or after college. Nobody really knows. You go with the flow, but you answered about the next project you'd like to do, completely barring all of that. That's actually a great answer. And I shouldn't have asked about college and whatnot. It makes no sense right now. Cool. So, I think, this has been an amazing chat. Like I said, you know so much, and you can carry a solid technical conversation so well that in itself is quite rare, and not to mention at your age. So, great chat. We'll chat more, but I think we should let people ask questions if they have any.
For sure.
Questions, anyone? I
Oh yeah,
see. There's one here, two hands here, one hand up there back, in the back. Yeah.
How do you plan to incorporate GTK code in Unity?
Oh, sorry. GTK code in Unity. Uh, oh, yeah. Unity actually already uses a GTK, and Unity X2 uses GTK, so it's not like integrating code. Like Unity does use Nux for most of its GUI, but most of the Unity apps already use GTK, so there's nothing that needs to be done. Like we aren't moving to Qt anytime soon, so Unity already uses GTK.
What about libadwaita?
Libadwaita. Oh yeah, I was actually interested in working on on the small alternative to libadwaita too. So yeah, we aren't interested in adopting libadwaita for Unity 7.
And releasing Unity to other distros?
Oh yeah, like I was trying to compile Unity 7 on Arch. Like there was a project named Unity for Arch, which was being developed. And I have contacted the developer of Unity for Arch in case he is interested in updating the packages which in updating the Ubuntu packages which he had packaged for Arch. And then we can use the new Unity 7.6 package. So yeah, I was interested in that. And as for Fedora, there were people who were interested in compiling it. I know one person who got Unity 7.6 to work on Fedora in the Ubuntu Unity Discord and Telegram.
Next question is a little personal. How do you uh, help younger developers who are not so well known in the GitHub community? Like some young developers who are 12 years, 11 years old and are working on compilers but only have like 24 stars on their GitHub repository. How do you tell them or help them to be known to the world? Yeah.
Oh yeah, so like I do make many pull requests to like smaller compilers and others. I actually haven't been that active on GitHub. I haven't been that active on GitHub lately because I had my exams last week. But yeah, I do make frequent pull requests to small compilers and other projects on GitHub. like you were mentioning 3 4 star projects, and then I haven't come across many young developers like 11 or 12. But yeah, if I do come across any, like there have been a few posts on this course by small developers. Yeah, I do like to I do like to reply to them and give ideas on this course to them.
Hey Rudra, your talk was really interesting. So it's repeat. So obviously what you work on is very technical stuff. Uh, did you make the effort to learn computer science somehow, or do you like just go about it in a need to know basis and like whatever comes?
I mean, like, there's enough information on the internet, so I never had to use any course or anything for computer science. I just basically use any resources that I can find on the internet, like YouTube videos are helpful, or tech articles, or yeah, like if say there's a or GitHub guests, because there are many for like most GitHub guests aren't just about just for storing files, but they also contain information and they contain information about how to create scripts, etc. So GitHub guests are a useful resource, and yeah, so I mostly just use such resources instead of following any course or anything for computer science.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Rudra. So I have a 12-year-old daughter, right? And I'm trying to comprehend it, right? Like my question is like, how do you stop? So what I see, right? I mean, 12-year-olds are very distracted, right? Like, do their Minecraft, right? Your friends, like what your friends do. I mean, like who do you hang out with, and like what do your friends do, right? Because I think when you're 12, like you're so much inspired, like or so much influenced by your people, your friends around you. But like, I really want to know. Yeah.
My friends obviously just like what you described, so like they play Minecraft and other games. So yeah, none of my friends are actually that into development. Like I'm basically the only developer here. So I mean, in my friend group. So yeah, so most of them are basically like gamers, and they aren't that into development. Yeah.
Please don't hold in anything against gamers. I still play Counter-Strike Condition Zero from
Yeah, I
24
was
years
yeah.
ago. That's what I play
I
still.
actually play CS:GO, and I gotta admit I also play like in the MPR server. There's an MPR Minecraft server, so I'm pretty active in that Minecraft server too. So yeah, I'm a gamer too.
CSGO is a little too polished. I like the 90s polygonal vibe.
Oh
So in the
nice,
office,
yeah.
that's what we play every day.
Oh nice. CS:GO, then like a few other games too, like Apex Legends once in a while. And then I also tried one of the early versions of Doom, but I haven't tried.
Doom, okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Oh, no. Yeah, we'll take 2 more questions and then break for tea. And I think everyone here should hound Rudra for answers, get him into chats off the stage.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask that. So you have developed this Ubuntu Unity, and it has gotten big. So has it ever happened that people coming like has it ever happened to you that there are some people, most of the people, who have come over and said like not said but like how you stay on top of everything, like bigger folks, people with more experience coming and you know you get that. Right?
Oh yeah, so there are people like Alan Pope and Martin Wimpress in the Ubuntu Unity community and in the Ubuntu community. So I often get advice from them too. Like when I was naming Ubuntu Unity, so I'd come across. I was originally gonna name it Unubuntu. So the first few releases were named Unubuntu. And yeah, I received advice from them for do not use the name Ubuntu, or else I might receive a DMCA from Canonical. They were both in Canonical back then. So yeah, they just gave me advice not to use these names, and then for Ubuntu Web, they also in Ubuntu Web they had suggested that I take a look at. I actually forgot what the name of the project was, but they had advised me to take a look at another emulator for Android apps, for Ubuntu Web, not Andbox or Vader. There was another one which they had mentioned, and I do receive advice from them once in a while. And there are many other people too in the Ubuntu Unity community who provide advice, and there are many other people in the team too. So I have one such incident. So back when I was in Delhi, so I joined the ILGD Telegram community, and I was basically contributing to their website. And somehow one of the administrators got to know about my age. So yeah, after that I was criticized a lot, and then yeah, I was kicked from the group. I understand that they had concerns, but yeah, they didn't even ask like for my parents' permission to allow me in the group. So that was a bit disappointing. But after that, they actually contacted me after the release of Ubuntu Unity to apologize for that, and even congratulated me on the releases. So yeah, that was one such incident, and there have been a few others too in Telegram groups and other communities and other forums. But apart from that, not really. Everyone has been supportive so far.
So I guess acceptance and encouragement.
Yeah.
I think we'll close the Q&A now. Rudra answered all questions like a champ. So he's super cool. And I'd also like to give his mom a shout out. She's sitting here somewhere. So shout out to Rudra's mom for introducing him and encouraging him and constantly encouraging him. Thank you, everyone. Please catch Rudra offline. Thank you.
So it was nice speaking to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.